What are you going to do now?
Unfortunately, my only skill in life is hitting a ball with a racket.
I want you to be my coach.
I want you to be my coach.
How often does this happen?
Thighs, Guys, Ambition, and Zendaya, a blend that Luca Guadagnino understands makes his latest film Challengers quite intriguing to audiences. Challengers, which was delayed last year, it was supposed to come out August of 2023, but delayed due to the SAG strike. It is now out in theaters, and I got the chance to see it this weekend. And this is the latest film from Luca Guadagnino, who's brought us such films as Suspiria, Bones and All, and Call Me By Your Name. He is joined by Zendaya, who plays Tashi, Duncan, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist of West Side Story fame. Challengers follows Art, a professional tennis champion who plots a comeback with the help of his wife, Tashi, a former tennis prodigy forced to retire due to injury, as he goes up against another player who also happens to be his wife's former lover and his former best friend. This is, again, directed by Luca Guadagnino with music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And trust me, we'll be talking about the music of this film in a second. And I should just get into this before we really start talking about my review of the film Challengers, is I had a misconception of what this movie was going into it. Based on the trailer with the Nelly Furtado song, Man Eater, I had kind of believed this film to be this mix of Basic Instinct, Fatal Attraction, meets something along the lines of Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman, a little bit more of that flash pop to it. And that is not what Challengers is. This is actually far more in line with Luca Guadagnino's other films. In it specifically, you see ideas that Luca Guadagnino is specifically interested in. Challengers is a movie about competition, and specifically Challengers is a movie about relationships, something that Luca has always focused on in any of his films, whether it's something like some of his earlier films of acclaim, Call Me By Your Name, or whether it's his most recent film, Bones and All, which follows two young cannibal lovers. Challengers is a film that explores people in relationships competing for attention amongst each other. And Challengers is also a film which explores what fuels ambition in competition. It is all of these ideas coming together, and it is such a well-suited topic for Luca Guadagnino to approach based on his past filmography. And what works so well about Challengers is Luca Guadagnino's central tension of its three stars who are desperately in need of one another to succeed, yet refuse to secede power as they fully believe themselves the alpha in control. They each know that they are in need of what the other offers, yet admission is weakness, thus neither or any of them can admit such a lapse of power. Thus, they are all vying for what the other one has and what the other one has to offer. And like I said, Luca is a filmmaker obsessed with the idea of relationships that are so deeply personal and often go against societal standards. And that's not something that Luca Guadagnino brings in with any form of judgment. It's almost voyeuristic in the way that he chooses to direct these types of stories. And the way that he captures a relationship can feel quite intrusive and invasive in his approach. And it's what makes him such a masterclass filmmaker. And I believe those tendencies are found heavily within the runtime of Challengers. And Luca is, for lack of a better word, is a sensual filmmaker, but not sensual in the way that you may think of. Challengers is a deeply sexual movie in tone and approach, but it actually has very little sex in it. Instead, sensuality is portrayed through the physicality of the sport. The thighs, the dripping sweat, the shorty shorts, the locker rooms, all of that is what makes this film sensual in its approach, and specifically the central tension that we feel from these three characters. Yet we aren't actually seeing these characters often engage in that physical act of sex. Rather, their lovemaking happens on the tennis court, and the passion and the intensity is felt all throughout the sports of this movie. And it's something that Luca Guadagnino captures almost perfectly in this film. I found those scenes to be just so highly personal, so highly intense, and just captivating in a sense that it was almost hard to believe that someone could capture something so raw and physical without anything actually being raw and physical in form. It's an amazing talent that Luca Guadagnino has behind the eye. And to go any further in this review, I think it's fair that I talk about Zendaya in this film, who plays Tashi, the former tennis prodigy, now married to Art in this film, because Zendaya is kind of the key to unlocking this movie. And this film understands the star power of Zendaya. They understand that she is this cultural icon. She is essentially the it girl of all it girls of this 21st century. There is just an allure. There's a fascination in her, the projects she chooses. She is at the forefront of style. She has this incredibly public relationship with Tom Holland. She is, for lack of a better word, one of the most famous people alive right now, and is a cultural icon. So to bring her in to a movie like this, Luca is able to weaponize her star persona in such incredible ways, because in my personal opinion, as much as I like Zendaya and as much as I am fascinated by her and her choices as an actress and a producer, I think she is actually one of the smarter people working in Hollywood at this moment. I'm not going to go out of my way and say that Zendaya is one of the best actresses of her generation. I think she is an actress who gets better and better every time I see her on film, but she's not this such awe-encompassing talent that is just ever sweeping. Rather, she just has a screen presence that isn't easily replicable on screen, and that's what makes her so alluring. She does have that movie star quality to her on screen, and she just quite literally pops in whichever she is in. And while you can get better at the craft of being an actor, I think only some people have that rare quality of stardom and movie stardom that Zendaya has, and she is able to use it to such great effects in Challengers. And it's such a great experience to watch her take on this role that, to be honest, I don't know if I even fully bought her in this role of Tashi. She reads a little young for this role, especially in the points where she is a mother in this film. And yet her stardom and what she brings to the role of Tashi is so powerful. And the chemistry that she has with Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist is so passionate and so real and so fascinating to behold that I was so engaged by the performance of Zendaya on screen. And she is so all-encompassing within Challengers, as is the rest of this cast. Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist are names you should definitely look out for. People like myself have known Mike Feist is a real talent. He pops off in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. I think he is the best performance in that film, hands down, and he deserved more recognition for what he did in that role. He is able to just bring that beta energy into this film and juxtapose it with Josh O'Connor, who is giving a fully alpha douchebag performance in this movie. And it makes for this wonderful trio amongst the three where you can all feel the three of them feeding off of each other. And it is so alluring to watch them go head to head in Challengers. And Luca is nothing if not an extremely exciting filmmaker and a wonderful designer of shots. In Challengers, the film has a pace to it that is solely contributed to Luca Guadagnino's brilliant pacing of this film. He does this effect throughout the movie where we are going back in time, whether it's back to 2006, whether it's 2008, whether it's just the day before, whether it's 2 days before the event of that this film is following in 2019. He's able to do it, and it infuses the sense of tension and adrenaline in this as we learn more about the characters. I will admit some of the script moments of this film fell short for me. I think the script has some shortcomings while it does work to the film's benefit to keep going back to the past and learning more about these characters and learning their specific relationships that they all have in it, and that does add to just further increased tension when we cut back to the present, it does do it a little bit too often, where it is almost a joke of, we are going back 2 hours and now we're going back 2.5 hours. And it just keeps coming up with the title card, to the point that I did find it very distracting, especially in the third act, where I'm like, let's just cover more of this in one scene and let's not just keep jumping back. But to its credit, it works and the style pays off wonderfully, because I think the third act's payoff is so well done. And we'll get to that in a second. And one thing that really helps with the pacing and tone within Challengers is the score done by Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. This is a wonderfully powerful score utilized within Challengers runtime. I mean, this is an all-time just adrenaline-fueled score. I don't think they have done this good of work since at least The Social Network. The way that it gives this film a literal heartbeat within this movie, it is club music played to the utmost, and you literally feel your chest pounding as it is going on. And it just, all it does is serve the tension of this film, and it is climactic. It keeps building up and building up, and just when you think the film score is going to explode, it pulls back and pulls out until we finally get to the finale of this film. It is quite literally a climactic score that just keeps building on itself until we get to the end. And as I keep making these sex puns, it is really important, because that is the structure of Challengers. This movie is essentially the act of sex that we see unfolded, specifically as we get into the third act sequence. And some people are going to be disappointed by this ending. And I'm not going to give any form of spoilers for this third act. I'm going to speak very broadly on it, but I do believe some people are going to be disappointed with where Challengers ends. And I understand why some people are going to find this film anticlimactic. And to be honest, while watching the film, I think it is purposefully anticlimactic. It is a film so purposefully aware that it can't live up to this final confrontation, because nothing can be as satisfying as these characters think it is. The stakes are so silly that there is no way to truly pay it off. And yet that's what allows the film to find its conclusion. This film is often very silly, and that is the point. It is looking at the silliness of competition and what drives us and what we do in search of our desires and powers. And on the outside, it's weird because, Luca does such a brilliant job with this, where we get to see some of the spectators watching the sport and them having none of the context that we have, and some of their bewilderment as they're watching this unfold. And it just seems so pedestrian in what their understanding of this relationship is. And that is what the film is explicitly about. The film that I would describe Challengers most similar in tone to is actually Damien Chazelle's Whiplash. I believe both of these films have a lot to say about competition, and specifically come to similar conclusions in their understanding of competition and how relationships impact that, and how one needs the other, how we need each other as human beings to drive ourselves to reach competitive heights, and the toxicity, damages, and downright at times disgusting relationships that we form in order to chase competition. It is quite a fascinating film, and I can highly recommend Challengers to anyone who seeks it out. This film is not going to be for everyone. Luca Guadagnino's style is never for everyone, but fans of Luca Guadagnino, I'm sure, are going to get a kick out of this film. I enjoyed it, even if there are some issues with the script throughout that didn't fully connect with me, and the story does drag on a bit. I found all three of the central performances electric, and there is a lot to recommend, especially Luca Guadagnino's cinematography in this film. The third act cinematography in the climactic tennis match is just all time one of the best stage scenes you'll see in a movie this year. So I can highly recommend Challengers. On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I'm giving it 3.5 for Luca Guadagnino's Challengers. So thank you all for watching, and please remember to hit that subscribe button. I will be having reviews coming out this week of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I'm doing a Star Wars ranking with Meredith Loftus joining the channel, and I will have other reviews coming out throughout the next few days, including a review of the newest Planet of the Apes film. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to see more reviews.